It's episode 663 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm talking about an absolute walloping that the Rangers gave the Rockies on their way out of Colorado, the potential last minor league game Josh Jung will play before his call-up, and the best outing of Jack Leiter's young career. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Brett Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. It is Thursday, August 25th. Your Rangers are 57-67. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. Now, let's go ahead and look at the first matter of business in today's game. The Rangers beat down, they annihilated, they destroyed, embarrassed, just spanked, straight up spanked the Colorado Rockies on their way out of Colorado. The Rangers played them for 4 games, 2 games at the beginning of the season, their home opener, where they lost both of those games in an absolutely miserable April. And then last night's game, yesterday afternoon, the game before, where the Rangers had a lead. But of course, Dane Dunning was on the hill on the road, so the Rangers could not win, because that's just not how Dane Dunning experience on the road works. It is not any fault of his own. He had a decent outing. The Rangers offense was behind him. He left the game after 5 innings with a 6-4 lead. You thought, okay, that's mostly safe. But no, the Rangers annihilator, CJ Cron, hit a 3-run bomb and eliminated that decision from Dane Dunning's hands. And even though all those runs were unearned, it felt like a pretty big mistake there by Brock Burke. There was a 2-out error that extended that inning, and it just ended up being a bad day overall. But there were some good things that happened in that game. Marcus Semien had a pair of extra base hits. He was a double and a single away from the cycle, had his 4th triple of the year and his 20th homer of the season. And man, it was a solid one. There's not a lot of wall scrapers in Coors Field because those fences are so far back. But again, we all know the deal with Coors Field, but it was a decent offensive day for the Rangers. Adolis Garcia became a 2020 player with his 20th stolen base of the season, and the Rangers now have him in that club. And I believe Marcus Semien is there. If he is not, if he was not already there, then he is there by this point. Where we go? Okay. Nope, he is still 1 stolen base away. The Rangers are going to have a pair of players within the 2020 club. And let's see, I don't think anybody else is going to come particularly close unless Eli White comes back for a month and hits 10 home runs, 17 home runs and 8 stolen bases. Then I think it's going to be just Marcus Semien and Adolis Garcia in that club. But it is a pretty darn good club to be a part of. But the Rangers won 16-4 in the final game against the Rockies this year. Finally got a win against this team, and their run differential is way in the positive at this point. They are plus, let's see, I believe 16 runs, positive 16 runs on the season, have scored 562, allowed 546. Their Pythagorean record, which is their assumed record based on those 2 factors alone, is 64-60, but their actual record is 57-67. If they were 64-60, they would be right in the middle of that 3rd wild card chase. They would not be at that 3rd wild card. They'd be a couple of games behind Seattle, but man, some of those 1-run losses go the other way, and this Rangers team is right in there, and none of these big changes are made, and everything looks a whole lot different than it does today. But, the Rangers are where they are right now, and I think it's a sign that you should expect a little bit more positive improvement next year, because the Rangers have gotten so historically unlucky in these 1-run games. They've been a little bit better in Tony Beasley's time as the interim manager, I should say. But again, it all kind of comes down to luck. But this 16-run game did not come down to luck. This Rangers team scored a pair of runs in the first. I thought, okay, maybe a couple more runs because it is Coors. Even though Martin Perez is on the hill, you could always use a little bit more run support against the Rockies, because crazy things happened in Coors Field, and crazy things did happen. The Rangers scored 7 runs in that second inning, had a 9-0 lead that held all the way to the 7th inning. Well, it still held, but it was completely unquestioned by this Rockies team. Dennis Santana came in after 6 brilliant innings from Martin Perez, 4 hits, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts in this one. Martin Perez was really feeling it, and there were a lot of hard hit balls by Nathaniel Lowe. He had 3 of the 5 hardest hit balls, including the 2 hardest hit at 110 mile an hour. I believe that was the home run. He hit that 443 feet. He also had 107.5 mile an hour hit ball. That was also, I believe that was his triple. We even had a Charlie Culverson pinch hit home run. That's how ridiculous this offense has been. Charlie Culverson was his first home run of the season. Nathaniel Lowe had his 20th homer of the season, continuing to extend his career high. The Rangers have 4 players with 20 home runs on their team this season. The Rangers haven't had that in many, many moons, and no other team in Major League Baseball has that right now. Yeah, that's right. The Rangers are the most 20 home run players on their offense. Not the Mets, not the Yankees, not the ridiculous hitting Boston, not the Blue Jays, not even the freaking Dodgers or the Astros. The Rangers are the ones with 20 homers from 4 different players, which is a little surprising that they're the only ones to do it, but that is definitely something that should be celebrated. I thought Jonah Heim might end up joining that club, but he's at 13 right now. Unless he goes on an absolute tear, it's pretty much just going to be him. The next closest is Cole Calhoun at 11, and there is no way in heck that Cole Calhoun is going to hit 9 home runs in the final 6 weeks of the season. If you want to make it look stupid and go ahead and do that, Cole Calhoun, please do that. But I just don't see any way where that happens. But this was just an offensive onslaught by the Rangers. Everybody reached base at least once. I believe all the starters reached base multiple times. And even both the pinch hitters had pinch hit extra base hits. Brad Miller came in to pinch hit for Corey Seager when this game was completely out of reach and had a double. Seager had a multi-double day, 17 doubles for him on the season. Hadn't been hitting a whole lot of them. He has not been hitting as many home runs as of late. Most of those have been doubles, including this one that I thought was going to be over the fence and a Coors Field home run, but it was not. He is kind of catching up on the lack of doubles he hit early on that were all pretty much all home runs. He's still 1 away from breaking his career high in home runs. He's tied it with 26. He's got 17 doubles on the season right now, which is 5th most on the team, I should say. Jonah Heim, Nathaniel Lowe, both have 20. Adolis Garcia has 25. This team has been crushing it, but it was pretty much a great offensive day for everybody. Nathaniel Lowe ended up finishing, I believe, a double shy of the cycle in this one, had his 3rd triple of the season. I don't really know how Nathaniel Lowe has 3 triples this season, but the answer is pretty much that he has been crushing it. Now we're going to look a little bit more at how much he has been crushing it, and a closer look at Ezequiel Duran, who had a 3-hit game in this one. But first, I got a special message for y'all. You're hanging out with your friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many, and the evening comes to an end. People start to head out, and you're thinking of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? Even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, total your car, you kill somebody. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So, if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Now, Nathaniel Lowe has been on an absolute heater as of late. I mean, we've looked at how ridiculous he's done in the month of August. Last time I looked, his OPS was 1,025. It has gone up 20 points at this point. He's slashing 378 on base of 434, and 611 is his slugging percentage in this month of August. He's got 5 bombs, which is his second most, tied with July. He had 5 homers in that month in 27 games. He had 7 in the month of June. Right now, he's at 5 through 23 games. He has been on an absolute tear. He's hitting 371 in his last 30 games. His last 7, he's slugging 839, hitting 387. He is hitting 295 for the season, just outside the top 10 in AL batting average. He is probably going to get that over 300 for the season. The on base is at 344. OPS is right around 830, and that OPS plus is, where'd we go? 137. He is 37% better than your league average first baseman offensively. That's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. That is what you're hoping for. He DH'd in this game. They had Mark Mathias playing first base. He hasn't played a whole lot of first base, was using Nathaniel Lowe's glove, but he also had a great game. He has done fairly well with the Rangers since being called up. He went 2 for 5 with a pair of strikeouts and a bases clearing 3-run double. He has been on a tear for the Rangers in, I think, 5 games that he has played with Texas. Not a whole lot of games, but he has had a lot of production in that short time. Yeah, exactly 5 games. He has a home run, a pair of doubles, hitting 429 and slugging 786. Does not have a walk to this point, so his on base is also 429. But he's been fairly valuable. He was one of the 2 players that the Rangers got back in the Matt Bush trade from Milwaukee. He is played fairly well, and I think he might end up being a a fairly important piece for the Rangers moving forward. Plays every single infield position, has not played as much first base, has also played a couple of corner outfield positions, hits fairly well, is that right-handed bat, and he has brought the thump in his few times being up at the major league level for this Rangers squad. But yeah, Ezequiel Duran is a guy who I want to look at. He had a 3-hit game in this one, had a double, and drove in a run with his 3 hits. And what he's done at the major league level is not something to scoff at. 46 games to this point. He's got an OPS of 669, which is nice, but also not super nice. But you got to look at the broader picture of how many games he's played above the A-ball level. He only played 45 games in Frisco. He's got more major league games under his belt at this point than he does games in Frisco. He also had 18 games in Round Rock. So that's, let's see, 63 games above A ball. And he's been in the big leagues and he's held his own. That is some incredibly impressive stuff for the youngster. He is only 23 years old. I do think he has a long future career ahead in the big leagues. I think he's going to be good enough to be a major league starter. He's had .5 WAR, so he's been above replacement level as a 23-year-old with, again, like we said, very, very limited time above single A ball. That is in a time where the gap between single A, like high A and double A is as big as it's been. The gap between double A and triple A is as big as it's been. And the gap between triple A and the big leagues is absolutely gargantuan. That is no small feat at all. He has been a huge, huge return in that Joey Gallo trade. Josh Smith has also done well. He held his own, but not quite as well. And he's had a lot more time under his belt at the higher levels. He's been more advanced than Ezequiel Duran coming in. He had success at the college level at the SEC, which I think is probably the best baseball in college baseball. It is still not anywhere comparable to high A or low A or whatever people compare it to at this point, because we've seen guys who have dominated in college, dominated in the SEC, and even dominated in the NCAA tournament, the College World Series tournament, like struggle. And Jack Leiter is one of those guys, but he's coming off his best outing as a professional so far. I was watching some highlights from him and seeing what people were saying on Twitter. And the biggest development from this is that Jack Leiter found his curveball. He's found it. That was his best off-speed pitch coming out of the draft. It was the pitch that was supposed to be a potential double plus, which I still think it could be. The slider was something that scouts thought he could maybe it may end up being better than his curveball. I do think it has definitely surpassed that. He has a better feel for it at this point, but he was basically for most of the season just kind of fastball and slider, and the slider he wasn't able to command consistently. The curveball, it kind of seemed like he lost his feel a little bit for it. And listening to the fellows over at the Ticket Diamond Pod talking about what his offseason plans were going to be, finding that curveball was something that they really, really wanted him to do. It was going to be very important to his development. Having those 3 really good pitches that he felt comfortable throwing in whatever count and being able to throw them for strikes or get chases from them. He tied his career high with 8 strikeouts. He went 5 1/3 innings, did walk 3, only allowed 2 runs in that one, and one of those came off of the home run. But he was fairly consistent, was able to hold his velocity, touched 98 miles an hour, was sitting 95, 96 in his final inning of work in that 6th. And that is something that is very, very encouraging for Rangers fans. It's been an up and down season for Jack Leiter, mostly down for the most part. His ERA is at 5.35, but you really can't go by the numbers. You got to scout it performance by performance. He has gotten better. He has worked his butt off. It has been a real struggle for him. And like I've said many times before, this guy has been the best pitcher on every team, in every league, in every situation that he's been in since he was probably 14 years old. And this is the first time he's been put into a place where the guys are just as good as him, if not better. There are other people on his team that outperformed him, that are the batters that he's facing are fantastic and, know what he's trying to do and can figure it out and can sniff it out and can hang with him and take him deep. This is not a situation he's had to deal with a lot before, and he is handling it pretty well. It is a tough ask for him. I do think he's going to start next year in AA, even if he has like two perfect games on like 60, 70 pitches his next time out. I really do think he's going to start in AA. Not that I think that's what he's going to do, is throw those perfect games, but still, this has been a challenging season for him. I think if he does come back to AA and he dominates, it won't be long before they promote him AAA. But again, like I just said, it is a big jump from AAA to the big leagues. Coming up, we're going to talk about another mystery name that ended up in Frisco. Popped my eyes open. I might have had to jump over there for a AA debut. Ended up just being a little bit of a red flag. But first, this word from our sponsors. So Evan Carter was in Frisco yesterday, and I thought, okay, am I going to have to drive to Frisco right now to go see this kid make his AA debut? He was on tepid participation. If you don't follow him, please go follow him. I don't know what you're doing if you're a Rangers fan, you're not following him. He is the master, the guru of AA Frisco, and he knows all, sees all, and experiences all. He had a picture on his Twitter of Evan Carter in Frisco Rough Riders gear standing right next to Owen White, and I thought, oh my gosh, does that mean Owen White's going to pitch tonight and Evan Carter's going to make his AA debut? No, neither of those things happened, but it was cool to see him in Frisco. He was there to get a leg injury checked out. He is not making his AA debut. I did not even hear about the leg injury until now. Everything seemed fine from those who saw him. He wasn't like walking gimp. He didn't have a walking boot or anything like that. He's going to be going back to going to Hickory today. I don't know how much more he's going to play this season, what the extent of the leg injury was. I haven't seen anything about that. But even if he doesn't play another game for the Hickory Crawdads this year, this has been a fantastic season for Evan Carter. He's 19 years old. He's the youngest player on this roster, probably one of the younger players in the league, if not the youngest player in that high A Sally League. He is 3.5 years younger than the average player in that league. Absolutely phenomenal. He's played in 94 games this year. He's got 18 doubles, 10 triples, 11 home runs, has stolen 24 bases, has been caught stealing 12 times. That's not super great, but 57 walks to 73 strikeouts, slash line of 288, 388, 485. That is an 873 OPS for a teenager in high A, playing almost entirely center field, doing it well, has the potential to be a 5-tool player. I don't know much about his arm. I think it's fine. That might be the only one that keeps him from being a 5-tool player. But again, he is still young. He is still growing. He's played 69 games in center field, done that very nicely. 7 games in left field and 3 games in right field while DHing 15. I'm surprised that he hasn't been called up to AA at this point because there's a spot for him in center field. Nobody's really manning down the center field every day. And I really want to see this kid in AA. He's definitely going to be in AA next year if he doesn't get a little bit of a cup of coffee at the end of the year. Don't know the extent of the leg injury, like I said, but it has been a really solid season for him. And I have been very encouraged by what I've seen and read about him this season. He might end up being, I might take Josh Jung off of my list of prospects next year if he does have rookie eligibility, because it'll be pretty close. If he was called up on Wednesday, so yesterday or today or tomorrow, he will have 1 or 2 days left of those 45 days on a major league roster, which is the cutoff for rookie eligibility. Anyway, the Rangers need to call him up right now. He had his 6th home run in AAA last night, probably one of his, if not his last, then one of his last games in the minor leagues before making his major league call up. He's played in 12 games for Round Rock to this point. He has 6 home runs, 5 doubles, slash line at 340, 400, 800, a 1200 OPS. The guy is ready. He has been ready for a while now, and the Rangers are coming home on Friday. They got a weekend series against the Tigers And this is going to be one of the most exciting things that happens to the Major League Club for the rest of the season. This guy, this first round pick, who probably could have been up in 2021, probably would have been up very early in 2021 had it not been for a foot injury that delayed his season, would have been up to start the season at the big leagues. I'm pretty darn sure if there wasn't that shoulder injury that he sustained early in the season. He has come back. He is healthy. He is playing third base. He is doing it well, and he is absolutely crushing it. I want to see Josh Jung in the big leagues right freaking now. Maybe he plays this Thursday night game. It is going to be Round Rock is going to be playing in Albuquerque at 7:35 Central Time. I wouldn't be surprised if he does play this game. They call him up and then bring him to Arlington for that Friday night game to start the series against the Tigers, make him their everyday third baseman. Maybe they send Ezequiel Duran down to AAA to go play the outfield and get some more seasoning at AAA. Not that he hasn't earned his spot in the big leagues. I mean, maybe playing him in left field every day, but again, he still hasn't played very many games in left field. He hasn't played that many games in third base either, but he's pretty much figured that out pretty darn well at this point. But I do think it's going to be Josh Jung's third base job for the future. He has been so valuable for this Ranger team. Maybe he's going to play first base and they're going to keep Zeke at third and put Nathaniel Lowe at DH like they did in this Wednesday afternoon thrashing of the Rockies. But whatever gets Josh Jung's bat in that lineup, whatever gets him to Arlington, it is about time for his major league debut. He's 24 years old. He is dominating every single pitcher he faces in AAA, including a rehabbing Dustin May a couple of times, who's, by the way, one of the best pitchers in the big leagues. Like, the kid's ready. Rangers fans are ready. Just go ahead and call him the heck up, because I am tired of talking about when is Josh Jung going to be called up. I am ready to start talking about what he's going to do once he's called up and watching him do it while he is called up, because the kid is going to be a really darn good baseball player for a long, long time. Now, earlier this week, the Rangers released their 2023 schedule. I think everybody did as well. It just all came out. It feels like a little later than it normally is. It's in August, which is early compared to some of these other leagues, not the NFL. The NFL always does it like 10 months or whatever in advance. But the Rangers have a new type of schedule. Major League Baseball is a new schedule format where everybody's going to play everybody at least one series during the season. And I like that. And I like the way the Rangers have it sorted out. They got a pretty decent start to their season. They'll start at home, finally have an opening day, not like the opening night, wait until Friday as opposed to the Thursday to get a home opener against the Phillies. 3 games there. They're playing against Baltimore, who is going to be really darn tough, who's already been really darn tough. And then the rest of their series until the end of the month is pretty solid. They go to the Cubs, who, again, not very good. They play 3 games at home against Kansas City. They play another 3 games on the road in Kansas City. They play 3 games at home against Oakland, and they play 3 games on the road against the Reds, who are going to be just as bad next year as they are this year. Then they've got some road games against the Nationals. They've got some road games against Seattle, against Pittsburgh, against Detroit, against Arizona. Like, this is not a very, very difficult road schedule. They do end the season playing against all divisional teams. Literally, their last 9 games are all against divisional teams. They got a 3-game series at home against Seattle, then 3 games on the road against the Angels, and then finish out with 4 games on the road against Seattle. That's going to be a really, really pivotal series. Those last 2 weeks are going to be crucial for the Rangers, who are hoping to be fighting for a wild card, if not for the division title. I mean, probably not. Houston's probably going to be just as good as they are this year, next year, unless they lose. Well, it really doesn't matter who they lose. They've lost a whole lot of really talented players over the years, and frustratingly, they have still been able to rebuild and be just as annoyingly good as they were in years past. But don't look past that series. Look ahead to that series a whole lot, because it's going to be crucial. Those 7 games against Seattle, and then they'll have 3 games against the Angels to kind of cushion themselves after that 3-game series at home against Seattle. But it's going to be a fun year next year. The Rangers have the chance to start off the season well, to start off on the right foot. They did not start off this season on the right foot, kind of come out of the gates running. Their May schedule isn't too bad either. They got some games against the Diamondbacks. They've got a lot of games against Oakland, against the Angels. They do have some against Atlanta, but they also have some games against Detroit in that May. So by the month of May, they could be sitting pretty, looking like they are fighting for that wild card spot. It's going to be a difficult month of June. They've got some games against Seattle. They've got games against Toronto, the White Sox, the Yankees in the Bronx. They've also got a series in the Trop. That is going to be a difficult month heading up into the All-Star break, where they will face Houston, then Boston, then 3 games in Washington before that All-Star break. But this looks like a solid series. They don't have to go to the Dodgers. That is a huge, great opportunity for them. They do face the Dodgers at home. They do have a road series against San Diego in July. That's going to be a tough series. They do have a road series against the Mets. That's going to be a really tough series in August. August is going to be pretty rough. They've got some games in San Francisco. They've got some games against the Brewers and against the Twins and against the White Sox. That is going to be a difficult month coming out of that All-Star break. But I think the Rangers have a fairly favorable schedule if they take advantage of their early months like they didn't really do this year. They did a great job doing that in May, but that was really their only winning month. It might end up as their only winning month on the season. Maybe they could pull it out in September. But I think September is also going to be a difficult month for this Rangers squad. But again, I'm really looking forward to next year. It should be their first playoff. They're hoping, otherwise there's going to be some major changes. They're hoping it's going to be the first playoff series in 7 years at that point, unless something absolutely miraculous happens, like some 20-game win streak to end the season for the Rangers this year. I really don't see that happening at this point. I mean, the month of September is also going to be tough for the Rangers. They got another series against the Astros in Houston, and they've got the most boneheaded series. Again, they had that one game where they flew to Miami and then flew all the way back to the West Coast. They've got another series like that, a doubleheader against Miami in September. And from the 9th to the 11th of September, the Rangers have a home series against the Blue Jays. Following that, on the Tuesday, Wednesday, they have a home series against the A's. So you think, okay, surely they're not going to have any series in between those. They have an off day Monday, right? No, they go from home on the 11th, fly out to Miami, play a doubleheader there, fly back, play 2 games against the A's at home, have an off day at least, and then fly to Tampa Bay. Why couldn't they just put that doubleheader in Miami on the Thursday? Why couldn't they do that? So then they fly to Miami and then they fly to the Trop. Not as far a flight and not as many back and forths. Maybe save some fossil fuels there. I don't know. That's just me from a 1,000-foot view saying maybe that would make a little bit more sense. But of course, the stupid lockout and the delay ruined everything, as it always did. But, it's fine. We're fine. The Rangers are okay. Coming off a 16-run game, you can't be too mad. Hopefully heading into a weekend where Josh Jung makes his Major League debut and coming off the best outing of Jack Leiter's young career. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be talking about the Rangers already announcing that Josh Jung is going to make his major league debut. I'm hoping that I could even be there in attendance for it. We'll see how that goes. But until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.